Is God trying to get your attention? I want to give you 5 signs that God is trying to speak to you. I want to talk to you about 5 signs that show that God is trying to get through to you. In fact, He could be trying to communicate something to you right now. It's not that God stops speaking. It's not that He abandons you, but rather we become so distracted, so self-absorbed, so immersed in this life that often we ignore the voice of God. So I want to show you 5 different ways that God will try to get through to you. Maybe He is trying to speak to you in this season, and perhaps you're missing a word from Him. So listen with faith, listen with an open heart, and comment right now. Type "I'm listening," and let that be your public prayer of surrender. I don't want to miss anything that God is communicating to me. I want to be attentive to His voice so that even when He whispers, I can hear Him with confidence and clarity. It's not that God isn't being clear. It's that we're not being conscious. Watch this video till the very end. Subscribe and like, because God may be speaking to you right now through what you're about to hear. You've tried everything to make it stop. You've stayed busy. You've filled every hour with noise, with work, with people, with screens. You've gone to bed exhausted, physically drained. And yet the moment the room goes quiet and the world stops moving, it comes back. That feeling, that low, steady hum deep in your chest that you cannot name and cannot silence. It's not sadness. It's not fear. It's something older than both of those things. Something that sits right beneath the surface of your everyday life and refuses to let you fully rest. And you've told yourself it's stress. You've told yourself it's just the season you're in. You've rationalized it, medicated it, distracted yourself from it, and still it returns. Every single time, because it was never yours to fix. That restlessness you feel, that holy dissatisfaction that no promotion, no relationship, no achievement has ever been able to touch, that is not a problem with you. That is God pressing on your spirit. That is heaven refusing to let you get so comfortable in the wrong direction that you never find your way to the right one. God does not always speak in the dramatic. He doesn't always shake the ground beneath your feet to get your attention. Sometimes He simply places a weight in your chest and waits. He waits for you to stop running. He waits for you to stop filling the silence with everything except Him. He waits because He is patient, but He is also persistent. And that restlessness you keep waking up with is evidence of that persistence. He is not punishing you with this feeling. He is pursuing you through it. The question is not why you feel this way. The question is whether you are finally willing to stop long enough to ask what He is trying to say. Because He has been speaking. He has been speaking for a long time. And this restlessness, this ache that nothing in this world can touch, is the sound of a God who refuses to lose you to the noise. You weren't looking for it. You weren't in a searching mood. You weren't on your knees asking for sign. You were just living, just moving through another ordinary day. And then it happened. You heard something in a sermon that stopped you cold. A single sentence that landed so deep inside you that you had to sit with it for a moment. You thought about it, then let it go. Then 2 days later you were scrolling through your phone and there it was again. Different words, different person. Same exact truth hitting the same exact place inside your chest. Then a friend called. And without knowing anything about what you had been carrying privately, without any context, they said something that made your breath catch in your throat, because it was the same message, again, and at that point you cannot call it coincidence anymore. You know that. Something in you already knows that. This is how God speaks to people who are too busy or too broken to hear Him the first time. He doesn't give up after one attempt. He doesn't move on to someone more attentive. He simply finds another door, another voice, another moment, and He sends the same truth through it because that truth is specifically for you, and He will keep sending it until it finally breaks through whatever wall you have built around a part of you that needs to receive it. The repetition is not random. The repetition is the point. When God wants you to understand something, He surrounds you with it. He places it in front of you from so many different directions that eventually you cannot look away. Not because He is frustrated with you, but because what He is trying to tell you matters. It matters for where you are going. It matters for what you are about to face. It matters in ways you cannot yet fully see. So pay attention to what keeps finding you. Pay attention to the theme that keeps showing up in your life from corners you never expected, because that is not the universe playing tricks on your mind. That is God being consistent. That is God making sure that this time you finally hear him. Speech Balloon, has this ever happened to you? Comment below and tell us, what message kept finding you when you needed it most? You were so sure. That was the hardest part. You weren't guessing. You weren't taking a blind leap. You had thought it through. You had worked for it. You had believed in it with everything you had. That job, that relationship, that opportunity, that chapter of your life that felt like it was finally coming together. You could see it clearly. You could almost touch it. And then without warning, without explanation, without any justice that your mind could make sense of, it was gone. The door didn't slowly creak shut. It slammed, and the sound of it closing echoed in places inside you that you didn't even know existed. And you stood there in the silence that followed, asking the one question that felt too dangerous to say out loud. Why? Because it didn't feel like guidance. It felt like abandonment. It felt like you had done everything right and still ended up with nothing to show for it. And the people around you had their explanations, timing, patience. Something better is coming. But none of those words reached the place where the real pain was living. Because the real pain wasn't just about the door. It was about what you had built around that door. The identity, the future, the version of yourself that was supposed to walk through it. But here's what rejection never tells you in the moment it arrives. It never tells you what it just saved you from. It never shows you the full picture of what was waiting on the other side of that door, what you would have walked into if God had not loved you enough to block it. Protection rarely feels like protection when you are standing in front of a closed door with your hands still outstretched. God does not close doors to diminish you. He closes them because he can see what you cannot. He closes them because the path you were certain about was leading you somewhere that was never meant to be your destination. You weren't in a place where you were open to conversation, open to connection, open to anything other than just making it through the day. You had your walls up. You had your head down. You were carrying something heavy, and you had made peace with the idea that you were going to carry it alone. And then someone showed up. Not dramatically, not in any way that announced itself as significant. Maybe it was a conversation at the most unexpected place. Maybe it was someone you had known for years but never really talked to. Maybe it was a complete stranger who said 3 sentences to you and then walked out of your life as quietly as they had entered it. But those 3 sentences went somewhere inside you that nothing else had been able to reach. And you replayed them. Not once, but over and over again in the days that followed. Because something about the timing was impossible to ignore. That person had no idea what you were going through. They had no access to the private conversation you had been having with yourself in the dark. They couldn't have known. And yet what they said, the words they chose, the moment they chose to say them, landed with a precision that no human being could have engineered on their own. That is not coincidence. Coincidence does not operate with that kind of accuracy. God has always used people to carry messages that he needs delivered to specific hearts at specific moments. Not because he cannot speak directly, but because sometimes a human voice reaching another human soul is the most powerful form of communication there is. Sometimes you need to hear it from someone who is standing in the same broken world you are standing in. Someone whose voice carries the weight of lived experience. Someone whose presence alone tells you that you are not as alone as you believed you were. The person God sends rarely looks like a messenger. They don't arrive with any announcement. They don't always stay long enough for you to fully thank them. Sometimes they pass through your life in a single conversation, and you don't even realize until days later what that moment actually was. But God knew. God knew exactly what you needed to hear and exactly who needed to say it. He knew the timing down to the minute. He knew which voice would break through the specific wall you had built around the specific wound you were protecting. That person was not an accident. They were an answer. And the fact that they found you, exactly when they did, is God's way of reminding you that he has never once taken his eyes off you. Speech Balloon, if this sign spoke to you personally, drop a comment right now and tell us which sign hit you the hardest. Your comment might be the confirmation someone else needs today. Everything is wrong right now. Not slightly off, not a little uncomfortable. Genuinely, completely, undeniably wrong. The situation you are in has no easy exit. The problem in front of you has no clear solution. The people around you are worried. The numbers don't add up. The timeline has collapsed. By every rational measurement available to your human mind, you should be falling apart right now. You should be consumed by panic, paralyzed by fear, drowning in the weight of everything that is pressing down on you at once. But you're not, and that is what confuses you more than the storm itself. Because somewhere beneath all of it, beneath the chaos, beneath the uncertainty, beneath the very real and very heavy circumstances of your life right now, there is something sitting quietly inside your chest that you did not put there. A stillness, a steadiness, something that feels almost inappropriate given everything you are facing. And you haven't been able to explain it to yourself, let alone to anyone else. Because it doesn't make logical sense. And you know it doesn't make logical sense. And yet there it is, unmoved, unshaken, present in a way that nothing in your external world currently is. That peace did not come from you. You need to understand that clearly. You did not think your way into it. You did not discipline yourself into it. You did not manufacture it through positive thinking or sheer willpower. It arrived on its own. It settled over you like something from outside yourself had reached in and placed it there deliberately, because that is exactly what happened. That is God standing in the middle of your storm with you, not watching from a distance, not waiting for it to pass before he shows up, present, right there, in the exact center of the hardest moment you are currently living through. And that peace you feel, that inexplicable, irrational, completely uncalm, is the evidence of his presence. It is what it feels like when something eternal steps into something temporary and refuses to be moved by it. The storm is real. Nobody is telling you it isn't. The pain is real. The uncertainty is real. But so is what you feel underneath all of it. And that feeling is not weakness. It is not denial. It is not you pretending everything is fine. It is God telling you, without words, without explanation, without needing either, that he is here, that he has always been here, and that whatever is coming next, you will not be facing it alone.